Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I'm your host, DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. You can follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. You can follow the entire MTR network on Twitter at the MTR network. We got everything for you guys. We've got obviously sports. We got the sports talk. That's our corner. That's my corner. That's this podcast corner. We've got the Super Tuesday podcast where in season we talk about television shows. Out of season we talk about everything else, comic books, movies, whatever comes to mind. We've got the character corners where Chris and I take deep dives on the characters. We've got a third Peter Parker one coming up this month to capitalize, accentuate Spider-Man Homecoming's box office domination. We've also got, of course, the flagship show, the Insanity Check podcast. It's where Chris has a guest on every week to talk about the news of the week. I'm on there occasionally. The world tends to end when I'm on there, so don't look for those too closely. But not, those are just the normal shows. We've also got our entire premium network. That's right, for $8 a month, over 300 additional podcasts. Anything you can want in the world, anything you want to hear about, talk about, listen to. We're talking nostalgia reviews, we're talking horror movie reviews, docu-drunks. It's amazing. It's a lot of stuff back there. Some would say it's the greatest podcast network on the face of the planet, but I'm not allegedly president. Let's talk about the show really quickly. The best way you can support the show is by leaving that 5-star review in the iTunes store. Once you do that 5-star review, anything you say afterwards, I have to read on the air. It's a contractual obligation I've made with myself and you guys, the listeners, and I will do it. I've done it in times that were detrimental to me. I'll do it in times that are celebratory, but it'll always get done. If you got more than you want to say, you've already left your 5-star review, go ahead and shoot us an email over at udpodcast@gmail.com. We've got a new email from a listener talking about UDPod number 51. Amani, what's up? Thank you for writing, man. This is his email. So admittedly, I'm not great at math, but this is episode 52 of a weekly sports show that you started in September. It's June. It was June when he said this. Or July when he said this. I'm not complaining at all, but I have questions. Oh, well, it's not. At least it's not like you're planning a wedding or anything, but seriously, congrats and thank you. Thank you for listening. 52 is way too many. Well, thanks for everything except for the Knicks slander. Okay, it's only slander if it's not true, so I blame the accuracy of your coverage. In the last 2 decades, we've run out Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, Larry Brown, Don Nelson, Lenny Wilkins, and Isaiah Thomas. Well, Isaiah Thomas helped you out with that one. At some point, you have to admit the problem is you, but I'll be stuck defending this sorry franchise until the end of time like you with the Clint Saga. Thanks for the great content and appreciate all that you do, and you ain't slick dropping that Run the Jewels like I wasn't going to rewatch that Black Panther trailer for a 47th time, Amani. Thank you, Amani. The outro music is something I have a lot of fun with, and something I'm going to talk about today on the show, actually. And it's not slander. It's not Knicks slander, and I know a lot of Knicks fans get sensitive, and why do you pick on my team? Look, if any team was this public and this loud about being this wrong, I would make fun of them just as much. But for a franchise that really hasn't amounted to anything since 1977, you tend to talk loudly about yourselves, and then I tend to laugh at you because it never, ever, ever goes the way you planned. The next best way to support the podcast, you left your 5-star review, maybe you sent an email, make sure you subscribe. Because while there is a schedule, and we'll be back on it when we get closer to the fall, I like to do things kind of on the whim. I'm kind of a freelancer. I kind of make my own rules. No, Chris makes the rules. I follow the rules, but still, you know what I'm trying to say. There'll be podcast drops sometimes during the week that will get lost in the shuffle of the main MTR feed. If you're subscribed to the UDPod feed, it guarantees that you're the first crack on every new piece of content that we put out. You can also support the entire network by going to the Amazon affiliate link through mtrnetwork.net. It's a great way to make sure Jeff Bezos gets his money when you buy whatever, but also make sure that we get a little bit of Bezos. Let the MTR network wet their beak just a little bit. Don't hurt Jeff Bezos, but help MTR. We've also, of course, got the store. I've stored it at mtrnetwork.net. You love us. Say it with your chest, or perhaps a very tasteful coffee mug. It's the best. It's probably the best way to not only support the show, but to spread the word. You are our best advocates. Now, that is out of the way. And I know what you're wondering. You say, DPalm, it's been a while. It's been, some would say, too long. But I got to admit, it's the summer. Y'all don't want me to sit up here and talk about baseball. I don't want to sit up here and talk about baseball. There was the All-Star break, notoriously the deadest week in sports. And it's been like NFL and NBA offseason stuff. And when you look at the sports headline, the stories are actually pretty damn bad. You got Mike Vick, who, I'm from Atlanta, man. That guy's a hero to me. That guy means something in the city. Got him on Whitlock Shuckin' and Jivin' Fried Chicken Watermelon Juggling Comedy Hour talking about Colin Kaepernick needs to cut his hair to be accepted back into the league. You got the Carolina Panthers firing their GM 7 days before training camp. Why? Who knows why? It's not a very good story. Got R. Kelly the rapist. Not really a sports story. Just makes me fucking sick to watch all these mouth breathers defending him. Hell, Chris is on a plane to San Diego right now, and he spent last night recording an Insanity Check special on just that I said I couldn't participate with. Hell, even in pro wrestling, normally my solace, my home away from home, my getaway from all the negativity in sports, they canceled Talking Smack. Talk to a wrestling fan in your life. They're just as mad as I am. But I'm not going to talk about any of those things today. Because as of this recording, July 18th, it's my birthday. I'm going to do what I want. We're going to have a lot of fun today. And the most fun I can have is talking to my best friend, who has agreed, as a birthday gift to me, to be on her very first podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my lovely fiance, the future Mrs. DPalm, Susan. Hi, Susan.
Hi.
How's it feel to talk to me as I'm 3 rooms away?
It's great. I'm just excited that I was able to get upgraded from the girl that's keeping the dog from barking to, a guest on the podcast. It's exciting.
And she came with prepared material. That's what I really appreciate. That's really what I appreciate. What's even funnier is that setting this up, and I know I said I was going to talk about it, I realized that I don't have a setup. I haven't set up my podcasting recording equipment to do a local show. There's no way for us to record this in the same room. So you're sitting pretty far, not that far away, but far enough away to where we're not having any echo or reverb. And we're going to get this podcast done. Before we get into anything else, I want to say thank you. And I don't think the fans or the listeners, God, fans, that sounds weird. The listeners know what an integral part of the show you are. Not just the girl who keeps the dog from barking, but after almost every podcast, I walk out of the show, she says, "How was your show?" I said, "It's pretty good." I never feel great about them. I'm just that kind of pessimist. But I always say, "Hey, will you help me pick the outro music?" So when you hear that outro music, it's usually with heavy input from Susan.
I try.
You do very well. We've gotten a lot of compliments. Some would say too many compliments on the outro music. I had developed a bit of a complex. But that also tells me that people are listening to the end of the show.
And what's exciting is now the world knows that it's all because of me.
That feels a little strong. But like I mentioned, it is my birthday. You're doing me a huge favor coming on. I really do appreciate it. Last week was your birthday.
It was, yes. July 11th.
Was it a big birthday for you?
It was. I just turned 30 years old.
So I gotta ask. So it's happening to you 2 years after it happened to me, and I think that kind of the stigma around 30s kind of vanished.
I don't know though. It's kind of driven me crazy a little bit. I try to be pretty chill about it. To me, the opposite of having a birthday is being dead. So when people who are already 30 are like, "Are you ready?" I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
On this side of the grass, it's okay.
Exactly. So yeah, it feels good. I'm here. I'm alive.
You are here. You are alive. But one of the best things about you, and I'm going to brag on you for a second, is what an accomplished visual artist and talent you are. You're such... You stop. If you see in our house, it looks beautiful because of you. You bring an eye to things that I don't actually have. I like to pretend I do. I don't really have it. But growing up, you were in the sports. You played soccer. You were heavy in the sports, right?
I did. I started playing soccer in the 2nd grade. let me correct myself. First, I started playing t-ball, but quit quickly. I was not on board for that whole situation. But yeah, in the 2nd grade, I started playing soccer and played 2 seasons a year until I was able to play in middle school. And then I played through graduation. So yeah, I played soccer my whole life.
So walk me through this because, like you said, you played soccer your whole life. You're actually pretty good. I'm bragging on yourself here. But the question becomes, because when we met, you were not about sports at all.
Let's just be clear that any skill I had in soccer was based off of size and aggression. That's just about it. But yeah, I don't know. Growing up, my dad watched a lot of baseball. He's a huge Braves fan. I grew up going to a lot of Macon Braves games when that was the minor league team, which was a lot of fun. But outside of that, I had not a lot of like huge sports fans in my family outside of just my dad watching baseball. So I just wasn't around it.
So, like, just for a reference, people listening, the first time when we started dating, I mentioned like a football Saturday to her. She's like, "Is that something people do on Saturdays and Sundays?" It was like she was from another planet where sports didn't exist.
Well, I just, in college, I went to an art school. We didn't have I think we had an equestrian team, like that was the extent. Yeah, listen, I don't know. But that was the extent of it. So I don't know. I didn't have a lot of friends who were huge on watching sports, and I just didn't really ever think about it, which probably sounds dumb, but
No, it's not dumb. It's really interesting because it's such a huge part of my life, and it's something that when we met, like we started dating. You're like, oh, it was 5 years ago. I'm like, it was LeBron's first ring in Miami. I'm like, oh yeah, that was the first one.
Whatever helps you remember.
Well, it packs the time and can mark it down. But it's interesting because, like, I had to, like, not had to, but I ended up teaching you football, or you ended up learning football through osmosis. What's it like being someone who's just, people don't like sports, it's fine. Everyone likes lots of different things. I'm also sitting in a room surrounded by Transformers, so I can't really say, like, how dare you not like sports? But is it weird, like, trying to, I don't know, kind of fit into that place?
I mean, not at all. I mean, because I was already spending most of my Saturdays drinking beer, so that, nothing's really changed there. But it was really just from lack of exposure. And I'm a pretty competitive person, as you know.
Yes.
So any excuse to, like, cheer for a team and drink beer and then, like, talk shit to somebody about it, I'm on board.
Congratulations on distilling sports into one sentence.
Also, you've done I don't know, you do a great job of talking me through what's going on, and I forget the rules between seasons, so you just have to rehash.
We have that beginning every year. It's like a new beginning. It's
yeah,
nice.
It's great. It's an
enjoyable
enjoyable.
Rules, honestly.
Exactly, and it's just an excuse for me to make you talk to me. So I'm into it.
Like I need an excuse to talk.
Also, as we talk to each other from separate rooms in the house.
Honestly, right? No, but okay. So when you came into football, like you said, it was kind of learning on the fly. I have been told, and you've told me this before, I'm not the easiest or most fun person to watch football with.
No, I mean, you take it so seriously, which I appreciate and I get. But 50% of the reason that I'm there is to be social and drink beer. But I feel like if I had the amount of knowledge that you do about what you're watching, that I would also get furious when people say stupid shit.
Yeah, there's that, but there's also the sports themselves, because the year you came in to like we started dating that fall was Georgia went to the SEC title game and the Falcons made it to the NFC Championship game. Both games actually ended on the same end of the same field.
It was garbage.
Well, no, it was garbage, but you got to see, like, and I tried to explain to you then that was our teams at their best.
See, but, like, if this is the first season that you've really participated in watching a sport, you're not going to believe people when they say that. You're like, no, this is what it's like every year. We're going to go to the bar, we're going to hang out with our friends, and we're going to cheer for our team as they do well at everything they try to do. But
what have you learned since then?
It's not real life. Sports are here to hurt you.
I mean, and I actually had some qualms with this when we started dating. I was like, do I make her a Georgia and Falcons fan? It was like, do I pass this disease on to another person?
You didn't make me do anything, first of all.
I know I didn't, but, like, it was one of those things I was like, I should just teach her to love the game.
But you know how much I love Atlanta. I mean, growing up in Middle Georgia, it was like the Mecca. I was like, I gotta get out of here. Yeah, so, I love this city, and so, of course, I love the sports teams, regardless of how terrible they are. I'd say that Georgia was tougher for me, because like, growing up in this state and in a smaller town where, like, that, I don't know, it's like, dare I say, fratty.
No, fratty.
To my fiance who was in a frat.
It's dude broy.
Yeah, it's just not, I don't know, but I got into it. It's fun. I mean, I enjoy it. You've converted me.
I converted you. How did it feel to be converted come this February in the Super Bowl?
Oh my God, the taxi ride home that we took was the most miserable thing I've ever experienced. I mean,
and I came home and recorded that night.
It was awful. It was
awful.
No,
the next day. I recorded the next day. That's what it was.
And in our friend's bar, who is a Patriots fan.
That wasn't my best decision. I'm not gonna lie.
It was never again. Never again. Not doing it.
You know, I was talking to our buddy Dallas this week. I haven't stepped foot in that bar since it happened.
I don't think I have either. And I'm fine. I'm fine with it.
Our friend owns this bar. Neither one of us has stepped foot in there since it happened.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't want to go back there and relive those memories.
All right, well, we're living the memories. There is a Gatorade commercial out right now where it's I don't know if, and listeners, if you haven't seen it, check it out on the internet. It's horrible. It's linked in the show notes, too. But it shows all these different athletes talking about what made them great, what made them victors, what made them champions. And it's about the defeat, the low point. And they tell their story. And it ends with Matt Ryan walking off the field in the Super Bowl. Susan, I can't tell you how much money they'd have to pay me for me to hear this pitch, let alone actually film this commercial.
I don't know. Doesn't he have enough money? Did he really need to do that to us? Just rubbing it in our faces. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah, it feels like he did it to us. You're trying to be an international sports fan. It feels like he did it to us. It feels personal. And during your birthday party, one of our friends had the temerity to say to me, I don't know, I kind of like it.
What?
Yeah, I think you had actually called it an evening prior to that point.
I don't like it.
Yeah, those words were said in your home.
Not into it. You're going to have to let me know who it was when we're off the air so I can...
off air and we'll never speak to that person again.
All right.
Well, all right. Let's get into some of the more fun stories that we've had going on lately. So one of the main vehicles for you getting into sports and like finding your appreciation of it has been the 30 for 30 documentary series.
Oh, God.
ESPN, they do these great like deep dives into topics, and it's been kind of, I don't want to say a crash course in the sports for you, but it really has been.
Well, just the way that they just dig into, I mean, these are things that I don't know anything about, essentially. Right. And they just dig into them in a way that the stories they tell are so compelling. And it just, I don't know. I get into it. I love it. I'm a big fan.
That's one of the cooler appeal of sports is that, like, while you're living these experiences and while like, oh, we watched the game last Tuesday, you kind of recognize that there's a larger narrative being told or a larger tale being woven. Even so far as I turned to you during the Cavs-Warriors series this year and said, how does it feel to be living a 30 for 30?
Yeah. No, completely.
This is a 2 out of 3 falls, like, championship match. Like, it's crazy, but you take that step back like, we're in the middle of one.
Yeah. No, they're so compelling.
The one we watched most recently was the 3-parter Lakers Celtics, which, again, like, for people who don't know, like, and people say, oh, maybe you're playing up how little of a fan of sports she was. She had no idea about this rivalry.
No.
So, I mean, not in a pejorative way, but, like, this was an education and entertainment. What were your main takeaways from, like, just kind of watching how it had spanned decades and players? And you got to watch, because, I mean, one of the points that was pointed out over and over in the film was prior to Magic and Larry that the NBA Finals were literally on tape delay.
Just the fact that two people and their rivalry can be so impactful on an entire sport. And even just, I don't know, the teams themselves were so influential with how the future of the sport has turned, or how the sport has turned out. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
You calling the dog?
Oh, sorry, that was me petting the dog.
No worries. Well, what were your takeaways from just this? Okay, how about this? Who did you relate to more, the Lakers or the Celtics?
Lakers.
Right? Like, I think even, like, when you're framing both teams in an equitable light, because they had, like, the Donnie Wahlberg, the Wahlberg they didn't want, but they had to settle for, doing half the narration. They had Ice Cube doing the other half. Even while they're trying to give both of them fair time, it's almost impossible for me to be like, oh, God, the Celtics.
Well,
they're amazing.
I don't know, like, and I get this way when we're watching sports in general. I have a tendency to cheer for whoever is losing. If we're not watching one of our own teams, because I'm a total girl in that way. But I kind of felt that way even in watching that 30 for 30, because there's so much back and forth. Like, yeah, the Celtics are maybe the bad guy, but not always. I mean, it's just, I don't know, really compelling stuff. And I love how they wrap up such a large span of time in, what was that, one show or was it 3? I can't remember.
That was 3. And
okay.
that
was
was
3
a
parts.
long one. But like even let's say the Iverson one, or like you learned about Lynn Bias through ESPN.
The Iverson one is the one that we watched. We watched it years ago, and I think I decided that were we? Okay. Well, anyways, I didn't want to watch any for a while after that because it just like broke my heart.
Right. So those are the Allen Iverson one. It covers his struggle. It's heavily focused on the high school years and the fight and all the different hurdles he had to overcome to get to the NBA. It's a great watch. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore, but you should seek it out if you want to watch it. It's a great story. But it was interesting because it's it tugs at your emotions the entire time.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's just, it gets so heavy. I mean, because it's people's lives. These are people, it's easy to, I guess I don't know. That's I think, a benefit of, not saying that people who've watched sports their whole lives can't, see these athletes as people, but because I'm sure they can. But
it's a fair thing to say. We've seen a lot of stuff like that.
I don't know. I think part of it is your influence, because you care about issues and how they relate to sports and the more global things that are happening. But I mean, these are people with lives, and it's not always an easy road. Most of the time, it's not an easy road. So, right. I mean, these stories are just, they get you.
Well, I'll tell you, the 30 for 30 I'm still waiting on is the greatest American story of all time. Because like you said, America, like you said, when you watch sports and you don't have like a specific rooting interest, you cheer for the underdog. There's no greater underdog story in the world than the Williams sisters coming out of South Central LA, trained by their father, and becoming the greatest tennis players of all time. And it came to a great head this past weekend when Venus Williams, and she's got to be 37 now, fought her way to the Wimbledon final, and she got trounced. It was bad. It was bad, but I think she lost to a girl who wasn't alive when she competed in her first major.
I can't imagine watching that match and not wanting to cheer for her.
Right.
I mean, she's incredible. And all that she's been through and just like keeps going. I mean,
it's so wild because you say all that she's been through, but people forget this is a woman who was at the front like Serena is. Like when Richard Williams said years ago, the younger one's better, and we all scoffed and realized how right he was. But Venus was the first. She was the one on the front line saying equal pay for women in these tournaments because I'm the draw. If you're coming to see me, we should get paid equally.
Just the fact that, I mean, she's obviously immensely talented, but like you said, I mean, her sister is Serena Williams. Can you imagine the heart it takes just to go out and continue to play when that is like who you could potentially go up against and she's your sibling?
Well, she's your sister and you've got a crippling autoimmune disease.
Yeah. She's a hero.
She really, it's one of those things where it's hard to appreciate Venus fully because she is fairly or unfairly cast in that shadow of Serena.
Yeah.
But when Serena, she stepped away from the stage, obviously pregnant, it's a reminder, it's a refresher course on the greatness of Venus Williams.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love every second of it. That's positive. Something negative, and I know you're not too entrenched on this, and I'm really happy about that, actually. The fact that you found a way to be insulated from the McGregor Mayweather nonsense, gives me hope for people in the universe. So they did a tour last week where they went to different... The fight's not till Labor Day, the official beginning of whiskey season.
Yeah.
And they did this, barnstorming tour where they had press conferences in 5 different cities over 5 days. And it was just the most racist, misogynistic, homophobic shit you can imagine being yelled at each other on stage. And while boxing has always trucked in race baiting and this kind of thing to sell their fights, Floyd Mayweather always fights on big Mexican holidays, and he always fights Hispanic fighters, and he always does something to mock them. This is kind of how the fight game's always gone. You've got McGregor out here. And the fact that they gave him 5 straight days means it's only going to get worse. I think it culminated last week when Floyd, because he's not as good a talker as McGregor, resorted to calling him the F word with double G's.
Yes, I did hear about that. I mean, I've heard.
You've heard the worst of the, like, when it hits
Yeah.
that, like, it's got to get noticed type thing. That's when you're hearing about it. But here's what's crazy, Susan. So this fight between these two reprehensible human beings who've said reprehensible things is, like I said, on Labor Day, but it's also not going to be a fight. It's an MMA fighter who fights in lots of different disciplines versus a boxer in a boxing fight. Like, if McGregor touches him, it's because Floyd let him, and the cable companies are worried that they don't have the infrastructure to support all the buys.
What?
They do this for a living, Susan, and they're legitimately concerned that the infrastructure in place cannot stand the number of buys they're going to get at $100 a pop.
Good God.
I don't mean to spoil you right now, but what we'll be doing Labor Day weekend will not be watching that fight.
I'm so disappointed.
I hate to look you in the air. But yeah, the idea, and people are like, this fight's a farce. This fight's doing what it's supposed to do. Make everybody rich.
No, that's what, I mean, like, I've heard coworkers talk about it. I've seen some stuff on the internet, but I don't know. My understanding of it is, like, isn't it their job to hype it up and create as much drama as possible? Because they get cut a paycheck before the fight starts, right? Is that true?
And they get a percentage of the door.
Yeah. So, like, what? I don't want to. I don't know. I'm not really on board. Not really interested. So I'm not interested in, like, participating in the shit.
And the thing is, and, like, it goes back to my argument, of course, that everything is pro wrestling. But even if you want to argue that these guys are working, that they're in cahoots, that if enough people are buying into the work, what's it matter?
Yeah. Totally. Lay off. Chill out.
If everyone's already invested, why are you still working? But I don't know, man. It's one of those things where I kind of, it disgusts me that boxing or that fighting in general is still great on this curve of, like, if you did any of this, any other situation, hell, any other sport, you'd be blackballed and reprehensible and they'd never be able to put you on the field again. With boxing, it's just kind of how it's always gone. Hell, you look back to, people say, Muhammad Ali's so beloved. Muhammad Ali became beloved when he started making fun of Joe Louis's over black features.
I mean,
before George Foreman fought Ali, his image was the big scary black guy. And so you're like, it's at the same time what they've always done, but it feels crasser and grosser. I don't know, maybe it's just because there's more eyeballs or because I hate both of these people, but it's harder for me to say, oh, that's the tradition, because it's really broken into the cultural zeitgeist to where, like you said, you've tried to avoid it, but you work at a children's clothing company and your coworkers are talking about it.
Yes, it's true. But, I mean, like you were saying, I mean, how much of this is them just being maybe terrible human beings, but also it's the expectation of how they're supposed to act leading up to this.
Yeah, it's a line you've got to make a judge for yourself. I think the judgment of this podcast, like we mentioned when Chris was on, this is a bad decision for everyone except for Floyd and Conor. The UFC gains nothing from it because they're going to have their top star get beat up and never fight UFC again. Floyd gets to pay off the IRS. And we as America lose.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a train wreck. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to participate in this kind of shit. I mean, it's awful.
It is awful, but I had someone tell me this weekend, isn't it kind of reflective of what 2017 actually is?
Absolutely. 100%. It's not surprising. Like, is anyone shocked? It's
no one's shocked, but I don't think anyone's happy either.
Well, and it's like, yes, it's terrible that this kind of, like, blatant hate speak is okay in the sport, but I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen in other sports. We just don't hear about it, maybe.
100%. Well, we've talked about the big sports. Let's talk about the biggest sport, America's fifth major sport, the national pastime. The Real World Rules Challenge is coming back tonight. We're recording in a lead up to this show, and you don't know if I've mentioned on this podcast many times. I talked about it at length with when we had Felder on a couple episodes ago. This is my jam. I'm sorry, like I'm a 32-year-old man and I love the challenge. And I'm pleased to say that did I bring this back to your life or did you bring it back to mine?
I think that it just kind of happened. We were living in Philadelphia and just out of sheer boredom, we got back on board. And it's one of the best decisions we've ever made.
I'm going to say something right now, and I don't care how it sounds. I'm going to hit the bow. I'm putting myself over a moment, but it's also true. This is a weird season for me because no one I know is on it. Now, you look. Have you seen? So right now, just so everyone knows, we're now at season 30 of the Real World Rules Challenge. Their big promo this year is it's Triple X Dirty 30. It was filmed in Colombia, and it's going to air, like I said, July 18th. I want to get some knee-jerk reactions out of you so that you can sell our listeners on some of these characters. We'll go through the female list first, people who are competing. And just so you guys know, sometimes these will be old Roll Rulers, old Real Rollers, or this new show called Are You the One? If you're watching Are You the One, you're a challenge diehard because no one enjoys it. I haven't seen the numbers, but I think it's true. Let's go with the female contestants first. We're having the return of Anissa.
Oh, so excited. Is Corey on too? Oh man, what's gonna happen?
We'll get to the male contestants. Don't skip ahead.
Excited.
Anissa, she's been here forever. She was on Rural Chicago many years ago. Are you excited to have her back in your life?
She's a vet, you know? She knows what's going on. She's all about the mental game.
I question her at her in the field work.
Oh yeah, for sure. She's not maybe the most athletic player, but she knows how to work the game. I'm excited to see her back. It should be good.
We're going to skip over all the Argue the One nobodies and land on a former champ. Camilla's back.
Oh, man, the Camillinator. She's amazing.
I didn't know. I honestly was like, I'm just going to leave this for her and see if she drops a nickname on us, and she did. Camilla's
I took the
back. Bait. He did. Cara Maria, another one of your favorites, also back.
She's just so buff. I mean, she's an inspiration. She's a total weirdo, but like she lives this sport. I'm gonna call it a sport.
It's a fifth major sport. Yeah, you're fine.
Like she lives it. It's ridiculous. But like I don't know, why not? Go for it. She's good at it. She's fun to watch. She wears weird clothes. I don't know. I'm on board.
Let's swoop over to the male contestants. We've got Tony and Shane Raines.
Shane and Tony. Like, is Tony gonna impregnate someone on the show?
Is famous for every time he's been on one of these shows, he's come back and it's open with him saying, "Yep, I got another girl pregnant." So the last time we saw Tony was, I think, last challenge season, and at that point he was a father of 3 little girls.
I thought it was 2, but you could be correct.
I think
You're
there
usually
were 2
right.
women and 3 girls.
Ugh,
one of whom he met on his season. Which, guys, when I tell you that we watch trash television, and I'm not ashamed of it one bit. Also making a return, Corey, like you said, is back. Corey and Anissa back in the same house. Also in the house, Kayla.
Oh,
and
drama.
Yo, for all the things I talk about Corey, and I talk a lot about him, guys, a quitter, popcorn muscles, the whole 9 yards, he tends to play the opposite sex game fairly well in these shows.
Dare I say he has game?
I don't. Ugh.
You can't
say that. I hate to live in that world where he has game.
Or these women, just their options are so limited, and
there's also that.
They're far away from
options.
home.
The biggest winner in challenge history, Johnny Bananas, is making his return. He had a very controversial move a couple seasons ago. You had the opportunity at the end of your 2-person quest, if you won the whole thing, if you had the most personal points, you could choose to split the money evenly with your partner or take the money and run and leave your partner with nothing. He, of course, because he's a slime ball, took the money and ran. And I think are we on different sides of this still?
I don't know. It depends on what side you're on, I suppose. What side are you on?
You can't take the money, man.
No, listen. I can't. You can't get too mad at him because it's a game. And at the end of the day, it's a game. However, I personally could never do that to someone else.
You don't have it in you?
No, and like I know that being a better person than Johnny Bananas is probably a low bar to clear, but
super low bar.
I don't know. I couldn't do it. There's no way. I mean, I get it. I get where he's coming from. It's a game, but there's no way I can do it.
Before we get out of here, I'll give you a little time here to sing the praises of newly returning former champion, only a 2-time champ. CT's back. And not just CT, guys. For those who haven't watched it in a couple years, CT's a father now. So you got dad strength CT.
Listen, Dad CT just warms my heart.
It's crazy because we've watched this guy be like a horrific human being. We've seen him be a drunken, destructive monster. We've seen him fall in love and watch that girl die on the air.
Ugh.
And now he's a father. And people are like, how do you watch this? I'm like, how do you not? How do you not? I'm invested in these people's lives.
What I enjoy is that until he had a kid, he was just CT. Now he's like dad bod CT, but he looks exactly the same. Has he just had a dad bod the whole time? Or yeah, he's still the same guy. I don't know.
Oh, man. Thank you so much for doing this, Susan.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Did you have a good time?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. Yeah.
You were a little nervous.
I don't know what you're talking about. Full confidence.
Full of confidence, huh? Well, it's your first pod experience, and it's your very first time on UDPod. Not the last. Maybe it'd be like a birthday tradition. Ooh. It's an easy gift for you. Like, honestly, I'm handing you a layup.
Well, I don't know. Being with you is the real gift. This is fantastic, and I appreciate it.
That is a lie. But no, I think once a year I can have. All I'm asking is that we have a conversation and you let me record it.
Yes, sir. You got it.
All right. Well, before I get out of here, I do have to ask you one quick thing.
Yeah?
It's been 5 years now. We're getting married in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
How in on pro wrestling are you?
I mean...
Scale of one to me.
Oh.
Jesus.
Wait, is this like a scale of 100? Like, are you
10,
at 100?
10. I'm a 10.
Oh, you're at 10. You know what? I'll give it a 6. I feel like that's generous. Going to live shows is so fun.
That's true.
Just the level of excitement of the people that are there. Like, everyone there is excited. It's amazing. And it's just a fun experience. So I'm on board for that. And I don't know, cool outfits.
You like some of the storytelling, maybe? No?
See, the storytelling is what I can't really get into.
Okay.
I prefer the sheer faux violence is what I'm on board for.
Faux, but sometimes real violence, as we saw with Finn's head this Monday.
Correct. I mean, these people are talented, and I can appreciate that. So, I don't know. Can't get on board for the stories the way that you do, but...
I'll take the 6.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop asking. I'll take the 6.
I mean, I don't complain about you watching it that often.
To me. Which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's love.
It's a real level of restraint from you. I did want to give a shout out to a frequent friend of the show, Rich Fan. That's Rich_fan on Twitter. You guys know him from previously the East Coast cast on PW Torch's coverage. He's now going to be launching his very own show now that PW Torch has made their way to Podcast One. You can catch him on The Deep Dive with Rich Fan, 6 p.m. Easterns on Saturdays. It's covering one big topic a week, as complicated as race, sexism, and wrestling, to as light as your favorite IC champ that never won a world title. If you think I'm not going to find my way onto that episode about the IC champ thing, you're insane. You can catch up with the podcast at pwtorchlivecast.com. Emails are welcome at pwtdive@gmail.com. Dive. That's right. Rich Fan's got his own show. It's on the Pro Wrestling Torch Network. Make sure you guys listen to it. I think the first episode is either this Saturday or the next. Either way, I'll be making the occasional run-in. If he ever does a pure WCW versus WWE podcast, then I'll be there to represent for that short-lived Ted Turner funded operation that brought me so much joy in my childhood. Again, Susan, thank you so much.
You're welcome, baby.
I really do appreciate it. We're going to get out of here. This is going to be an outro that she had nothing to do with. Well, kind of. This has been Unanimous Decision Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at UDPod. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. Leave that 5-star review. Subscribe in the iTunes Store. Email the show at udpodcast@gmail.com. Go through our Amazon affiliate link on mcrnetwork.net. Also go premium and get access to over 300 more episodes of your favorite personalities. Only $8 a month. And lastly, swing by that MTR store. Get yourself a shirt or tasteful mug. That was your show. This is your outro. See you guys next week. Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I'm your host, DPalm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. You can follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. You can follow the entire MTR network on Twitter at the MTR network. We got everything for you guys. We've got, obviously, sports. We got the sports talk. That's our corner. That's my corner. That's this podcast's corner. We've got the Super Tuesday podcast, where in season we talk about television shows. Out of season we talk about everything else, comic books, movies, whatever comes to mind. We've got the character corners where Chris and I take deep dives on the characters. We've got a third Peter Parker one coming up this month to accentuate Spider-Man Homecomings, Box Office Domination. We've also got, of course, the flagship show, the Insanity Check podcast. It's where Chris has a guest on every week to talk about the news of the week. I'm on there occasionally. The world tends to end when I'm on there, so don't look for those too closely. But not, those are just the normal shows. We've also got our entire premium network. That's right, for $8 a month, over 300 additional podcasts. Anything you could want in the world, anything you want to hear about, talk about, listen to. We're talking nostalgia reviews, we're talking horror movie reviews, docu-drunks. It's amazing. It's a lot of stuff back there. Some would say it's the greatest podcast network on the planet.